Chapter 481. In addition to a few spies in the venue, their leader, nicknamed White Porcelain, was wearing a wig to cover up her white hair. She was wearing a high-slit cheongsam and was greeting guests at the entrance. Thea felt sorry for them. There were so many heroes here, it would be safer for them to rob the White House. They were so stupid. The heroes here could beat the shit out of them. However, there were so many heroes that they had to worry about. Who was going to do it? Uncle Ronjen, can you control their minds? Thea contacted the Martian hunter telepathically. The result was as she expected. The Martian hunter refused without hesitation. I won't use my ability on ordinary people. You deal with it yourself. Thea sighed. Fortunately, Superman was a warm-hearted person and volunteered to deal with the people in the brick wall. They could detect abnormalities with their special abilities. Some of the bodyguards and agents of the politicians also noticed the abnormalities of these people. Agents sounded powerful, but in fact, they were only at a slightly higher level than ordinary people. If they took action first and caused a commotion, they would directly destroy the venue that Moira had carefully prepared. This was something that Thea would not allow. Also, the identities of many superheroes could not be exposed. This made her a little cautious. After whispering to Thea to make a big noise to attract the attention of the agents in the venue, she whispered to Oliver. Keanuway's people are in the venue. How many are there? Oliver's eyesight was the best among humans and had been strengthened repeatedly. Now that it had reached a higher level after receiving Thea's warning, he immediately looked at the scene and found a lot of clues. 5. Don't make a scene. The four of you and Diana each take one of them nearby and deal with them. Don't disturb Mother. After receiving Thea's signal, Felicity had a conflict with a waiter. After many years of being a vice president, she was full of dignity and scolded the waiter until he apologized repeatedly. Thea directly cast a slow spell on the 5 people in the venue. Time was tight, and they couldn't make any big casting movements, so the power of the spell was reduced to the minimum. Could only make them fall into a trance for a while, but that was enough. They split up. There were still 4 enemies in the kitchen, so Thea left them to Batman's team. Seeing that Batman and the others pretended to go to the toilet and led Nightwing, Barbara, and Catwoman to the kitchen, Thea also found her target. With her face almost frozen from smiling, Chenaway, who was dressed as a greeter, was just about to catch her breath when she saw one of her targets. Thea Quinn walk past her. Just as she was wondering how much money she could earn from this kidnapping, she saw Thea glance at her nonchalantly. Fear instantly welled up in her heart. Her childhood misfortune, everyone rolling their eyes at her, her youth wandering in a gang, her constant defection to new bosses, and her constant betrayal. She had worked so hard to get to where she was today, but everything seemed to have changed between illusion and reality. All her previous experiences were like a dream. She had walked through her life again. A few subtle changes made her feel like she had fallen into an abyss. She was no longer the leader of the triad, but a beggar by the roadside waiting for death. She was still hiding under the bridge in the cold wind, a pitiful person waiting for help. This can't be real. This can't be real. She murmured softly, but her voice was so soft that she couldn't even hear it. Her willpower was not bad. Thea nodded slightly. Many ordinary heroes and villains had stronger willpower than those with superpowers. This was the difference between suddenly gaining power and gradually gaining power. However, this was meaningless. She was now using a new application of supervision and fear. It was an allusion to the Taoist dream of golden millet. However, those were all good dreams. Her modified version was a nightmare, and each time was worse than the last. Chenaway quickly entered her 3rd dream. Her consciousness was stuck in the memories of the past. Subconsciously, she was scared out of her wits. She could no longer tell if her previous glory was still there. Unparalleled fear was rapidly growing in her heart. Finally, after the 6th dream, her willpower was defeated. Her eyes lost focus, her legs went soft, and she fell straight back. For her, a long time had passed, but in fact only a second had passed in the outside world. As she fell to the ground, Thea, who happened to pass by her, directly grabbed her. She may be malnourished. I'll help her to the side to rest. Facing the curious eyes of the other greeters, Thea explained. They did not suspect anything. This was the metropolitan hero, the winner of the Nobel Prize in medicine. She was a super rich person. There was no need to lie to them. They did not know the truth, but they felt that Thea was very humane and a good person. They all looked at her with admiration as she carried Chenaway away. As she began to move, the few people in the banquet hall also moved. In a real battle, no one was afraid of this group of nameless soldiers. However, if they did not want to attract attention, they would need to be prepared. "Oh, sorry. I stepped on your foot. My hand slipped. Is your clothes okay?" With all kinds of messy excuses, he dragged out all the enemies who had been affected by the slow spell and were dizzy out of the hall, then tied them up and knocked them out. Batman and Superman also moved quickly. In order not to expose the true identity of the heroes, everyone chose to knock the enemies out. The banquet was in progress. They could not leave for too long. Moreover, with more than 40 people tied together, it was too easy to be discovered. Thea directly tied them together and threw them into the portal. On the other side was Oliver's lair. They pretended that nothing had happened and returned to the banquet hall to eat and drink. It was as if the group of more than 40 people did not exist at all. The Christmas banquet was extremely successful. Moira could not stop smiling. There were still many people who understood her intentions. Many people expressed their support for her candidacy. She was so excited that she drank a lot of wine. After the banquet, Thea sent her home and then rushed to Oliver's place to see the results of his interrogation. Superman and Batman did not participate in Star City's affairs. Diana also went home early. Only Oliver's Green Arrow team was left at the scene. Oliver was helpless about his enemy's idiocy today and sent him to his door as a Christmas gift. He had already caught them, so it was impossible to let them go. However, he wanted to know the purpose of the other party tonight. Was it because his true identity was exposed or for other reasons? However, his subordinates did not know anything. No matter how they tried to scare them, it was useless. Brickwall and Canaway were in a deep coma, so there was no way to ask. When Thea arrived, the Green Arrow team was fully armed and wearing masks. They were splashing water on Canaway's face. She did not look at the poor person who accepted her new version of a pipe dream, but looked at the brawny Brickwall. This triad member with a little superpower seemed to have a bad brain. Thea saw the battle between Superman and them from afar. This guy actually let Superman punch him so as to test his endurance. In the face of such a sincere request, Superman was a little surprised, but he did not refuse. He used 10% of his strength and gently hit him. Then this guy became the miserable state in front of Thea. Chapter 482. The chest area of his dark black jacket was shattered, and there was a huge fist print on his chest. His special ability allowed his body to slowly recover, but the injury was too heavy, and it would take a lot of time for him to recover to his peak condition. On the other hand, Keanuway's eyes had rolled back, and it was all thanks to Thea. She was lost in her dreams, and she didn't know which was her past and which was an illusion. She struggled in self-denial and finally lost consciousness. In layman's terms, she overused her brain in a short period of time, and it crashed. Keanuway's self-consciousness immediately noticed the abnormality after retracting the fear she had set up. She had a deep impression of what she had experienced, and every detail was unmistakably real, which was a sharp contrast to the false and empty nightmare. She wasn't a beggar on the street, nor was she a tragic and indescribable woman. She was the leader of the triad. Keanuway's consciousness instantly took over her body. Although she was extremely weak and dizzy, she still tried to stand up to defend against the enemy's attack. "Who's there?" Like a patient with a high fever, she stood up shakily and tried to open one eye. When she saw Green Arrow's bow aimed at her, her heart sank. "What are you doing at the city hall?" Oliver, who had a voice changer, pulled the bowstring and asked sternly, "I'm going to the city hall? What am I going to do there?" Keanuway's memory was a little chaotic, and it took her a long time to sort it out. Looking at her companions who were tied up like dumplings, she knew that the operation had failed, but where did it fail? She didn't know that there were a lot of superheroes in the city hall, and she only felt that she had lost unjustly. She had climbed up from the bottom, and she had always believed that failure was the mother of success. If she lost today, she would find the problem and win it back tomorrow. This had always been her creed. But today's operation was really inexplicable. If it was said that the Green Arrow Party had defeated her, she would not believe it at all. Both parties had been fighting for half a year. If the other party had the means to silently capture her, how could she have survived until today? But a wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. She knew too well that she had to admit her mistakes and stand properly when she was beaten. "We're going to kidnap some city officials and extort a sum of money." Oliver was a little incredulous. "You're so courageous that you're going to challenge the world's superheroes. Just for a little money?" There was a hint of doubt in his tone. "That's all." Canaway looked at him, puzzled. Her mind spun rapidly as she analyzed the information Oliver had revealed. However, before she could think clearly, she saw a white light flash and she fainted again. Thea knocked her out. "It seems to be a coincidence. This girl only knows about the city government's Christmas dinner. She thought it was just an ordinary event in Star City. She didn't expect so many politicians to be there." Oliver could also understand what his sister meant. Moira still had 2 years left in her term as mayor. Today was just a small preliminary test. There was no big publicity. These two unlucky bastards did not know that the vice president and a bunch of senators were present. The so-called democracy and equality were all nonsense. Kidnapping a clerk was a criminal case. Kidnapping the vice president was no different from treason. The vice presidents and members of parliament arrived late. Their informants did not see these people. If they had known the details of today's meeting in advance, they would not have courted death. After the farce was over, Oliver was in charge of whether these unlucky guys would be sent to the police or dealt with. Sia went directly to Diana's apartment in London. It was late at night in London. It was quiet all around. Only the occasional barking of the neighbor's dog could be heard. The dog was immediately appeased by its owner. The crime of disturbing the public was not a joke. At this time in the quiet room, a slight fluctuation woke Thea up. It was the fluctuation of space transmission. Her first reaction was that someone was going to sneak up on her. Then she thought that this movement was not small. The probability of a sneak attack was not high. With her skills, there were not many people on Earth who could defeat her. Besides, Diana was still by her side. Even if Superman came to kill her, she would not be afraid. Diana's reaction was not slow either. The two of them sat up at the same time and looked at the uninvited guest vigilantly. The translucent transmission wave spread out, and a young woman stumbled out. She had short blonde hair and was wearing a shirt, shorts, and a pair of slippers. She held a key tightly in her hand. She looked around in panic. She seemed to sense something and looked at the other side of the bed. For bright eyes were staring at her. "Hi, Diana." The young woman did not know Thea. She only felt that the woman's eyes were too sharp, as if she was trying to see through her organs. It was a little funny. How could a human's eyes see through their organs? The sudden arrival of an unfamiliar environment made her very nervous. Fortunately, she soon found a familiar face. She knew Diana. "Zola? Why are you in my house? I remember that you went back to your hometown." Diana did know this girl. She was a very kind person and had worked for her foundation for a while. I'm at my family's farm. Do you know my farm? It's in Virginia, but a strange blue-skinned man came and said that he wanted to protect me. Then we were attacked. He gave me the key and I'm here." The woman named Zola told Diana the whole story incoherently. She didn't know why she was telling Diana the whole story. She just said it naturally. "She's my employee, or at least my former employee. I think I should help her," Diana explained to Thea. Thea could not say anything. She could only chuckle. The woman in front of her had an identity that even she did not know. She was the reincarnation of Athena. However, Thea could not find any trace of divine power in her. She was just an ordinary person. Her physical characteristics were not obvious. After a while, people would realize that she was pregnant. The result announced to the public was that the stallion, Mr. Zeus, was old but not old. He had given Diana and the others a new brother and sister. The actual situation was that this main god was hiding from his eldest son and putting on a shocking show. The one who was born was not his son, but himself. According to Sia's understanding, his main account could not be leveled up anymore, and his level had been maxed out. So he took this opportunity to level up a side account. If he could get the source in the process, the old god would become a new god, and that would be even better. Thea kept looking at the young woman. She was a little disappointed. She was just an ordinary person, at least before the will of the gods. There were no flaws at all. As for the blue-skinned freak that she mentioned, it should be Hermes. Hermes was the god of speed and thieves in Greek mythology. However, he seemed to be honest, but he had other intentions. Seeing that Diana seemed to want to get involved, Thea could only go with her. She would meet Ares soon and accidentally kill the god of war in battle. Thea had to stop her.